All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm Tracy Sprower from Met How at Home. And right now, during our Get Ready season, we're talking about transportation and housing. And so I thought it would be fun to interview you, Dana. You're going to be doing a program about ride sharing. And since you are involved with the new climate action plan, it just seemed like a good fit to have this conversation. And I'm excited
Yeah, thanks
to
for having me.
get your work and your thoughts out there. And so, yeah, go ahead. And if you could just introduce yourself and a little bit about your background and your education and what you're doing now.
Yeah, for sure. My name's Dana Golden. I grew up in Seattle and spent a lot of time in a Mazama yurt that my parents started built the yurt when I was 4. And so the Met Out has always been a really special place for me. I for college I went to Williams College in Massachusetts, and uh, got a degree there in environmental policy. I grew up with my dad working on climate, and I never really intended to be doing the same thing that he was, but I found that just in college and the classes that really stuck with me were really connected to humans and how we kind of interact with our home and our planet. And so studied that. I worked doing environmental consulting for a while. And then I went back to school for a degree with Presidio Graduate School that is more focused in kind of sustainable business and management. And yeah, I finished that right around the time when the Metro Valley Climate Action Plan was being completed, and started volunteering just to help with the transition of the plan being finished and then what comes next. And then I kind of got looped in, and now I'm still working on it. So yeah, living in Mazama, really appreciating and loving being in the valley full time, and getting the opportunity to work on something that I think is really important.
That's great. And just out of your studies and your experiences, what's inspiring you? What drives you forward with this work?
Yeah, I would say, to be totally honest, I've had ups and downs of when I feel like I really want to engage with the issue of climate. Sometimes I feel really inspired and motivated to work on it, and sometimes it feels like too big or overwhelming, and I'd rather just like focus on something smaller. So I've definitely had those ups and downs. But I really like, especially working on this climate action plan and just through my own experience, I really see how climate is connected to everything. And it feels like there's a way for all of us to be engaged with this issue. And it really feels like, for me, it feels like the issue of my generation. So it almost feels like I can't not be working on it in some way. And then I think what I find, I think what I find inspiring is just, looking to other strong voices that help to make the connections on how a lot of the forces at play around climate and even other things of economic disparity and racism are really connected. And I think start seeing those connections rather than having issues be totally separate is inspiring to me. And I think
Yeah.
Just and then I guess other, writers and thinkers that really look at like activism or working on these issues as like a lifelong kind of practice of something that you keep working on and coming back to. And so I think that also inspires me or keeps me thinking about it.
Yeah. Are you reading anything right now that's
Well, I would say
inspiring?
the main person that I love on that right now is Adrienne Maree Brown. She is awesome and has a just really great thinker, and has a particular book and idea called Emergent Strategy that is about that is rather than kind of thinking hierarchical top down is how we get things done, that the small connections and the small change that we make can kind of build up and have much bigger impact. And then also looking at the natural world for how the natural world kind of organizes itself in small connections to have really big impacts. So yeah, that's super inspiring to me as well.
That's so great. Yeah, there's something organic, about that, instead of this like coming in with the box and the very like yeah, logical, linear sort of approach to everything that I think oftentimes in our culture has been taught as being like the way of doing things. Actually, there's more than one way of thinking. And yeah, that's great. Yeah, I've been listening to her a lot lately. I just listen to everything now.
Yeah, totally. I know. Have her in your ears.
I know. She's just really one of those inspiring thinkers. And yeah, thanks for bringing that together too. I think a lot of times people are going for like earth justice or social justice, but not realizing that these two paths are so interwoven, and
For sure.
and really there is a cultural mindset that is in the midst of shifting right now. And it's interesting to just watch it play out, and the people that are just really hanging on with a lot of fear to a sense that like this hierarchical way of being is that there's a sense that there's people who are really threatened with that shifting, and just letting go into the emergent strategy and seeing what comes forth. So yeah, with the climate action plan, that was a really large effort. It sounds like you were kind of in school as that was being created, and then jumped on as a volunteer. And so if you want to just talk a little bit about what went into the creation of our of this valley's climate action plan, and where is it right now, and what's your role in moving it forward?
Yeah, for sure. So the climate action plan was initiated, I think, in 2019. The Methow Valley Citizens Council kind of initiated the facilitation of it, but it was really clear that it's a community-wide plan. So it's not the Citizens Council's plan. They did a really big engagement process of inviting a lot of people in, both to work on sharing their expertise around it. So, scientists and people working in the different environmental organizations, and also kind of more of the social side. So people from Room One, and influenced by the Colville Tribes Environmental Program, and really trying to bring a lot of people together. And I think it was really inspired by the fires, and thinking about, wow, like how can we be more prepared and proactive about the climate impacts that we're seeing. There was somebody from the University of Washington Climate Impacts Group, Amy Snover, who also lives in the Valley, I think part-time, maybe full-time soon. And she presented on, okay, here are the things that we can expect to happen in this region. And then going from that kind of scientific baseline, thinking both about, the plan includes actually both mitigation, which is reducing our emissions. So there was an emission study to look at where do our emissions in the Valley come from, and what could we do to reduce our emissions and be part of the solution, and also kind of an example of a rural community really taking the problem on holistically. And then also adaptation and resilience. So doing what we can to reduce emissions, and also knowing we're already seeing some of these changes. What can we do to be better prepared and respond better to the impacts of climate? So that includes everything from water use to kind of natural systems, forestry, also includes our built environment. So housing, transportation, health and smoke impacts, thinking about that. There's also some stuff in here about a resilient economy, that like what could an economy here look like that isn't just reliant on visitors, because we know that that's pretty susceptible to climate impact. So there's a lot in the climate action plan, and the folks that wrote it really thought about all of those different impacts, and then potential strategies that might help to make us more resilient to those impacts. I think it's a particularly unique that it includes both mitigation, reducing emissions, and adaptation. There are a lot of local plans that only include adaptation and don't want to take on the work of reducing emissions. And I think the group that created this plan decided that that was really important to work on both. And then another part of the plan is recognizing we are one small community. So to have an impact, we need to think about advocacy and connecting to other places that are working on this, and really being an example of a rural place that's taking action on climate. So that's the climate action plan. And I guess one other way it's pretty unique is that it's not being implemented by a government or a county or a city. We had the Winthrop and Twist mayors engaged in working on the climate action plan, and they're definitely taking pieces of it. Because it is a community plan, it is very emergent. And my role now is really in talking to people about the climate action plan, figuring out where different organizations kind of can take and own a piece of the plan or work on particular parts of it. And then also where there are gaps where we need to look for additional grant funding, or really bring the right players together to get something done that isn't already happening. So, Met How at Home, for example, is definitely playing a role in the climate action plan by, helping people respond to and be aware of and prepare for climate impacts, and by kind of strengthening the fabric of our community and our ability to take care of each other, both before and during some of these impacts. So yeah.
Aww.
How was that?
You're doing that.
Any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. My daughter is very inspired about food sovereignty. So who knows, maybe
Yeah,
Met How at Home will kind of
totally.
also, yeah, thinking about community gardens and ways to,
Absolutely.
just
Yeah, I
grow
didn't
more of our
mention
own food here, right?
totally. Totally. I didn't mention agriculture, but food and agriculture are also in the climate action plan. And yeah, for sure, thinking about how to support the farms that we have, and then also what would it take to increase our ability to grow food here. And it's definitely connected to how resilient our system is. I think I want to say it was this winter when it snowed a ton and all the passes were closed, and you start to realize
Mhm.
like, oh, the
Oh,
food in the grocery store is
yeah.
getting kind of low. And yeah, so thinking about what can we do as a community to be more resilient around or what we eat and grow here.
Yeah, I think that's a really exciting place to think about. I'm just gonna pop one other thing. My
Yeah,
daughter
please.
is she's very into permaculture, and there are some really amazing permaculture videos of different projects from around the world, especially places that get a lot of water. And well, it's like the Beaver Project, right? The Beaver Project is so awesome because it's creating different ponds to and reservoirs of water to actually
Totally.
slow water down, right? Because
Mhm.
and to keep it within the system and not just run off and be gone.
Right.
And so yeah, permaculture piece is there's some really neat projects happening
Mhm.
all over the planet right now that are
Yeah,
really inspiring.
for sure.
Um,
Sounds like we need to get your daughter looped into some
I know.
climate planning. She can be a food and agriculture lead.
She needs to keep channeling her passions. They're definitely, yeah, they're with us at every dinner time.
Nice.
So yeah, I thought maybe I would just go ahead and share the screen
Yeah,
and pull up the executive summary. And
great.
so, and then we could talk a little bit about here it is, the executive summary about
Hmm.
transportation, because that's our theme right now, transportation and housing. And in particular, you're going to be coming and doing the program on ride sharing because,
Mhm.
well, number one, I have a lot of members in Met How at Home who, for one reason or another, can't drive.
Right.
And so it's a really big deal, when you are limited with your
Yeah.
ability to drive. And then there's a lot of folks that really care and don't want to just drive
Right.
all over the place. And so, yeah, I'm really excited about the ride sharing program. But here we're seeing this was surprising to me. Did this surprise you too, that 92% of the emissions in our valley are coming from transportation?
For sure. Yeah, it's a really high number. I would not have thought it would be that much either. I think one like caveat or thing to note is that in the heating and cooling buildings, a lot of our electricity for that comes from hydro power. So it doesn't have fossil fuel emissions, and there's still opportunity to have our buildings and homes heating and cooling in a more efficient way.
Yeah.
So there is that, and we have some cool projects working on that in particular.
Mhm.
But yeah, the definitely, I mean, it's a huge percentage of our emissions is transportation, and that includes both visitors to the valley and people that are here full time, kind of getting in and
Right.
out of the valley and up and down. So
And
yeah.
I'm trying to remember, but what the percent was of tourist cars versus
Yeah,
resident.
I can find it in here. I want to say it was more like 25%
Yeah, I mean, it was
visitor,
high.
something
Yeah,
like that. Yeah.
it was pretty, yeah, fairly
Yep.
high there. And then here, as you said before, in the gray box are these goals for resilient Met How. So, I mean, putting water first, I think, is so key, and making choices around how we relate with water affects so much of our behavior.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
so I love that. And then yeah, resilient, healthy, and abundant natural systems, community prepared and safe in the event of adversity. I mean, yeah, we've been learning, right? We've been learning more and more all the time.
Yep.
And then this number 4, this is where our transportation and housing, low carbon, efficient, livable, and resilient, affordable built environment. Can you talk about any of the projects or dreams or line items that are involved with this number 4 here?
For sure. Yeah. So let's see, I'm just pulling up my hard copy of the plan. So one part of that would be prioritizing infrastructure for non-motorized transportation. So bike trails, bike parking spaces, bike lanes, even just making sure that the places where people are living in a somewhat more dense area, it is more walkable and bikeable. And that's where, like I know Met How Trails is working on the Winthrop to Twisp Trail. So that's an example of that. And just thinking about what we can do to improve our walkability and bikeability. And then, thinking about public transportation. So we have TrainGo. I think, you were at a meeting with me that was with the Okanagan Council of Governments, thinking about how to kind of improve the public transportation that we do have, both in the valley and then for getting to outside of the valley, whether it's Wenatchee or Seattle or that kind of thing. One of the things in the plan is thinking about incentives for using public transit, whether it's employer incentives or like shuttle services for recreational use, or event shuttles, like if we know a lot of people are going to the same event, that kind of thing. So those are some ideas. And then, one of the things in the plan is create and implement a rideshare program. So that's definitely in there. So I don't think there's any one answer for transportation. I think public transportation, rideshare, walking and biking, and then figuring out, what rideshare could look like. I know in the past there's been, posting on the bulletin board, or I've started, just sending a post out to a bunch of friends when I'm looking for a ride to or from the west side. So there's a lot of people moving about, and how could we better kind of share those rides. And it's also, I think it has the potential to be a community building, a way to meet people and not just be in your car.
Absolutely.
I know some people like, there's something nice about being in your own car, and it's an opportunity to meet people. And then that's the first strategy, was all about transportation solutions. And then the second strategy is affordable low carbon housing. This gets to, like, the first action on there is support the Housing Trust and recommendations from the Metro Housing Solutions Network, which is a group kind of including the Housing Trust and beyond. Look at zoning to determine feasible locations to increase density. So where that's possible. There's some stuff in here about adopting green building standards. So affordable housing, but also efficient housing. And then the third strategy is about, is actually in this built environment section, is actually about increasing tree canopy for shade and cooling in kind of our urban areas, while also thinking about wildfire risk. So that has some additional pieces in there. Yeah, you can see, I mean, even just in this one goal, how many different like pieces are connected in. You have the Housing Trust, you have the towns, you have Trango, lots of different groups involved in what that looks like.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the share.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's gonna take all hands on deck. What's the time frame that the action plan is like? Are there any set kinds of goals with any?
Yes, there are. I should know this off the top of my head, but I want to double check so I don't say. I want to say in the reducing emissions. Hold on, I'm just gonna find it so I don't say the wrong thing. Goal 7, page 75. So I'm actually trying to use the plan that lots of people worked on rather than just make stuff up.
Yeah, while you're looking that up too, I'll just remind everybody to go to the website Resilient Met How, and you can pull up the whole action plan and take a look at what's underneath each one of those goals. Because so much good thought work has been going on into this. Yeah, so we'll definitely be coming back to update and review this plan. But what it has in here is for goal 7 is a carbon neutral Metro Valley. And it goes off of the Washington greenhouse gas emissions targets, which are by 2050 to be 95% below 1990 levels. So that's going back below, certainly below where we are now, and then back below where we were in 1990. So that's kind of trying to align this work with what the state is doing on reducing emissions. But there's kind of target points before then for reducing emissions. And then with those actions and strategies that we talked about around transportation and housing, it doesn't set specific deadlines, but it does parse out what's a near-term action that we could do right away and what's a longer-term effort that's going to take some time. So I love the idea of the bike paths. They had to enclose our ditch, and so I'm like, ooh, it'd be so nice if we had that as a path where we could bike or ski into town, for transport. Totally. Yeah, there you go. Another piece that I didn't hear in there in terms of housing that I would want for my own self personally as I grow older, and I wanted, and I loved this when I was a little kid too, was just more co-housing, where people are really making more food together and there's a little bit more cohesive community. I mean, I love the Housing Trust and what they're doing. And I think McKinney Ridge is like trying to really incorporate some of those community activities as part of the neighborhood, or setting up a structure to encourage more community. But yeah, there's a really kind of a fun documentary. I think it's called Happy, and it goes around different places
Mm,
in the world. And one was in Denmark, where they have a
mm,
lot of co-housing. They've just really created a lot of culture of co-housing,
mhm,
and it's such the elder, like mental health for youth. It shows with the youth and the elders that the more time that these two groups like get together, the healthier
mhm.
each
Yeah.
those groups are, because our culture, I think is starting to have these conversations and do a little better. But I mean, wow, there and there's been a big change in the family structure. It's just much more
Mhm.
nuclear, less extended, and there's a lot of our elders that just are pretty alone, and
Yeah.
they have so much to give. So
Yeah, for sure. For
I
sure.
like the
Well,
co-housing.
yeah, I mean, and I guess another good thing to make sure I say is that this was an initial plan, and it's a living document and will be updated, and something like that of like, oh, what about that could achieve a lot of the goals around sustainability and community and resilience, and so it could
Mhm.
definitely be something to add in there.
Yeah. Yeah, so I love this. I love the effort that's been going into the plan. And yeah, just talking to about what you think might be some of the bigger stumbling blocks. Like
Mhm,
what are just even on like a micro personal level, but also at the
mhm,
collective level, change is hard, right? There's like
mhm.
a little cartoon. It was like, who wants change? Everyone puts their hand up, and it's like, who wants to change? Nobody puts their hand, you know?
Right, right.
So yeah, just some thoughts on what some of those blocks and barriers are to both personal and collective change, and maybe
Yeah.
some sort of antidote.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Totally. Well, I think with climate change in general, one of the big challenges that I see is that it's kind of everybody's problem, but nobody's responsibility. So we're all impacted by it, we're all connected to it, but it's not. It's like, whose responsibility is it to fix it? And I think actually with this plan, um, the task force that worked on it was really clear. Like, we have so many nonprofits in the valley already. Let's not create a new climate nonprofit out of this plan, um, but rather think about what are all the pieces that both organizations and citizens, like where everybody plugs into this kind of shared problem. So I actually think that the way the plan is set up is, in some ways, an antidote to that. I think a challenge is that it's different from how we like generally think about something getting done. It's much more of a shared kind of collective thing of how do we all fit in, um, and there's actually I could send this to you, or I could actually just pull it up, but I think I'm gonna pull it up because it's a pretty cool way to think about how each of us can be connected to um, climate action.
I just gave you the screen sharing.
Okay, awesome. I think here we go. Yeah, so this is there's this awesome woman, Dr. Ayana Elizabeth Johnson. She's a marine scientist and also climate activist. And she gets the question a lot
Mm.
of like, what do I do about climate? I don't like, it's such a big problem. What do I do? And she created this Venn diagram, which I think could be a tool for getting involved in anything. but just that piece around that we all can have a role to play in climate action. And her questions are, what brings you joy? Certainly this is a long-term issue. So if you don't have some joy in it and you're burned out immediately, can't do much there. And then what are you good at? So thinking about your skills, certainly like for the climate action plan work, you know, we need people that are good writers or photographers or grant writers or you know, like to hang out at the farmer's market or, you know, all kinds of different things. And then what's the work that needs doing? So really this plan is like a big look at what's the work that needs doing. And then it's figuring out kind of where we can all engage in that. And yeah, and I guess I kind of went straight to the solution without talking a lot about the stumbling blocks. But I think that is I think it is the stumbling block that we're all aware that it's happening, but it's happening somewhat slowly, and it can feel like we don't have the power to do anything about it. So I know personally for me, my climate anxiety is highest when it's literally smoky outside, when there are fires. And then in other times of the year, it's easier to not have it as front of mind, you know? So how do we kind of hold that knowledge that it's happening and kind of stay engaged and find our sustainable way to keep engaging with it and thinking about it. And then we talked about this a little bit too, but I think another stumbling block can be the like either or thinking of like, oh, either it's just my own life and I have to be perfect about being a sustainable person and never forget my grocery bags and never get in my car and, you know, be perfect within a challenging system, or I'm just going to focus on the big picture and not think about how it integrates into my own life. And I personally think they're both really important. So both thinking about how the climate reality impacts our day-to-day choices and thinking about coming together and kind of demanding bigger action that none of us can do just with our own choices. So yeah.
There's so much that can be done too in terms of, you know, just uptake. If we could get some cooperation at a higher level, and but yeah, and then we talked a little bit beforehand on a couple of other thoughts. One being, you know, this is called Met How resiliency, and so just acknowledging the humans that lived peaceably, sustainably in this landscape for thousands of years, and how the Colville Nation has been included in the action plan. And any thoughts from you about the forward movement that?
So the Colville environmental program kind of consulted on and gave input on the climate action plan. And I think just in general, it's really important to keep that in mind of who lived in this place for a long time in a way that really was not extractive, and to, in as many ways as we can, look to them for you know, how to move forward on these challenges we're facing. And then also I think, you know, we talked about this too, that the Colville has a climate resilience plan. There's some broader work that can be done in Okanagan County, working with Chelan's resiliency plan. So starting to think of beyond what we just consider this valley and how we're kind of more connected to our neighbors and the rest of the county on tackling some of these challenges. So the plan is is pretty focused on this valley, but how can we be collaborating with and working beyond those borders, and especially with tribes. So yeah.
And then the last piece is, I really appreciated in the Earth Day, I think it was 2020, or maybe it was 2019. I don't remember now.
What year is it anyway?
Back in the day. No, it was 2020 because it had to be on Zoom. So
yeah, right.
Just that importance of intergenerational connection, and as we move forward, and just any of your thoughts on that piece of things.
Yeah. I think that, I guess in my own life, I'm certainly seeking that intergenerational connection of my grandparents are, one set is still in California, but they're not here. And then also, like, I'm at the age where I don't have kids, but I love being around kids, and, just thinking about how much richness that can bring all of us, and learning from each other and taking care of each other. And, certainly younger, like kids and younger generations, we have if anybody has any high schoolers that want to be working on this, there'll be in the fall a Liberty Bell action group kind of reviving and getting back together. I think youth voices are super important, and elder voices are super important. And yeah, the more we can kind of share wisdom and connect, the better. And I shared with Tracy that I've been living with my parents since fall of 2020. My dad joked, like, well, if it takes COVID for this to happen, I'm all on board. But yeah, thinking about breaking down some of those kind of cultural norms that we all have to be separate and independent, and yeah, just a lot of the benefits that come from kind of living more in community, even just with my own family. So yeah, I think the more, and climate really is, it's such a generational problem and challenge of how do we pass on this place to future generations in a way that it's habitable, really. So I think the more we can all be figuring that out together, the better.
Yeah, I just had a beautiful piece of art pop into my mind. I can't remember what tribe it was from. I don't know if you got to see that art show. It was opened up the Seattle Arts and Culture Studio up above the King Street station.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't think I saw it.
And it was all for, all Native American artists. And I went in a day when they were there with their art pieces. I think I was there opening day. And there was this beautiful piece of art. And like the title of it was this word in, I don't know if it was Salish or if it was, might have been from Yakima. Anyway, it was the word that meant the effort that it takes to do the right thing today for the
I love that.
Down the line.
That word. Yeah, totally.
So, yeah, thank you so much for all of your effort, Dana, and just for your good where it does the most, and sharing it here with Met-Hal Valley right now, and your family, and with us in this conversation.
Definitely.
I'm really grateful for your time. So
yeah, thank you so much. It's really good to talk about it. Hopefully maybe see some folks at the event next week. We also have I'll send you the info on this, but we're going to be
week.
Yeah, I know. What the heck?
Right. Tuesday the 12th, 4 to 5
from today.
Here.
Yeah, exactly. We also will be doing a book group on Ministry of the Future, which is a book that really kind of thinks about climate and a world in which we really like deal with it on a global level. So that could be something that folks might be interested in joining too.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna
All right.
go ahead and push the end recording button.
Okay.
And